Hello, guys, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander
And
Cocky.
here's the glorious Captain Foley. Glorious, I say, Stuart.
Glory to you in your house, Samuel.
Thank you. It's a nice house.
I don't even know if these Klingons say that. Regardless, today we're looking at a Discovery Klingon ship. The Chargh? Chargh. I don't know.
Yeah, I got
Gonna-
the
yeah.
class. Now, Stuart, Klingons in Discovery, yes. Fleet shot, you say? Yes. Here's the fleet shot, Stuart.
Okay, sure, yeah.
And of course, we're going to be looking at the ship. I know obviously all of you know the class, but it's the one on the bottom left of the fleet. Obviously, just for those that didn't know, the few that didn't know. And this shot does, in fairness, represent most of the fleet ships. So there they are, the Klingon fleet. And I think it's fair to say, if you're not an Eagle Moss collector in on the fleet, you wouldn't necessarily know what the ships look like. Star Trek Online has wonderfully built them all. And we're going to look at what we've never looked at before. So here is the ship, of course. Now, first question to you, as I often say. Do you remember it? And if so, feels, vibes. Tell me your thoughts.
I don't necessarily remember it, no. It invokes different things in me. There's different sci-fi weapons over the years, like handheld weapons that look like similar to this. It's an interesting shape. It's a great idea. It just, as we've said with a lot of the Discovery stuff, doesn't really feel Klingon, but...
At least this one isn't trying to be a D7 or a D6
True.
or Bird of Prey. So we looked at that recently, and of course, it is a comparative piece. This is a technical piece. This can be more things to more people versus that one, right? Now, this is, of course, the Star Trek Online model. You're seeing them in 4K, Stuart. I did a bit of modification to kind of tweak the lighting. If you look at if we go back for a second, back to the show shot, do you see glows? Not really. Not in the same way that are here. But in Star Trek Online, they gave glows, so I used that as a baseline. And let's be honest, they've now been in snow more in any way than back in Discovery. So here we go.
What do you think, and what does it invoke in you?
I do remember it, but I'm obviously of the sort that, do all the prep work, searching for stuff. Every Klingon ship could be interesting. I do remember this. And there's two ships in the fleet that are the same design but different pieces, give or take. This, to me, I think there's two that are very similar, this being one of them. So I'm intrigued by it. I think you could do a lot to this and make it Klingon. I think there's a lot more here. Not so much in the small things, but if you were to give the middle section a Klingon character, then I could buy the giant pods being a weird abstract something. So there's more here that I appreciate, while still being unrecognizable in its Klingonness. I mean, entirely unrecognizable, I think it's fair to say. You would,
As you said, since this is 4K, I'm zooming in a little bit, and the scale looks quite massive when you look at the windows.
which are windows, probably. I mean, if you're going on that as the metric, then each side being a giant Arbin cell, maybe designed to go into, in Voyager, the Built Del Flyer, right? To go into that crushing depth planet gas thing. Design it to deal with really harsh conditions. Cool, okay. Right? I could buy that.
Or it's just a much, 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 much older design, and there's other really beefy big warp engines that maybe have a max of warp 5 or 6 or something.
If you painted it green and gave the head module a more of an Enterprise era, I could genuinely see this as a just like 30 year before Enterprise rustic design. It's got that kind of unabashed bulkiness.
We're trying really hard.
Well, I guess maybe because there's no cathedralness to it, right? There's no ornate detail. It has a more grounded ship feel. I mean, you said to Bird of Prey, does it feel like a ship? This, I can see as a ship, right? But the next view, though, suddenly reveals a whole ton of detail, and I was kind of surprised. And I do get Klingon vibes from those nacelle, from the impulse engine, sorry. Not necessarily what we associate, but I can see a line towards Klingon, so I appreciate that.
And it's funny, before we went to this picture, these pods look a lot like the rear pods of the sarcophagus ship if the ship flew the other direction. Like if it flew this direction, like this was the front, and you put like the neck on it and the big head of the sarcophagus ship, there's similarities there. But yeah, lots of detail and like greebly things. Well, not small greeblies, but like things that are there just to be there.
But there's more logic to them. They're in trenches, they're there is more here going on. Now, when you were saying about sarcophagus ship and the way it was facing, do my eyes deceive me? But in the middle of the pods at the front, there look to be turrets. I mean, a circle thing with two things either side that almost infer it should in fact go that way, and there's forward-facing guns.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as Klingon ships go, forward-facing like red glowing bits is kind of a thing, right? So,
True.
I know it's not.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Yeah, so this would work facing this way, and yeah, they do look like there could be some kind of turrets on either nacelle there.
I mean,
Huh.
I know, because I mean, there's nothing to say they didn't make it the wrong way around, right? There's nothing to say that they didn't do that in post or whatever. It's weird if they were the forward torpedo launchers, but hell, if you're going for ultra classic, old school, I mean, 3 forward photons is quite cool. I would certainly want to see personally, I would see the middle section flipped, so there's some forward momentum happening versus everything facing backwards. I quite like those details. They're for either impulse or torpedo, they're stupidly ornate. I don't see why you need all that negative space and yet that many lines, but I like the detail. And it was fun to kind of extract the glows and have them like light it around it for a fun effect.
Top of the nacelles have a red circle, which it kind of implies to me kind of like an impulse crystal kind of deal, which is a nice little touch. So,
which wouldn't normally make sense in this context, but given if those are impulse engines at the back, then A to B. You know what I mean? There's a certain something extra about this that kind of works. It's more rustic. I don't know. Next shot though, this is where I think they've just mirrored, given the fact that
absolutely,
it looks all basically identical. Not the middle bit quite, but close. Now, is this view better with this perspective? Does it change the feel? Because it's basically the same everything, but is this better?
Don't know if it's necessarily better. I thought the same thing when I first looked at the photo, but now that I'm kind of flipping back and forth, like I thought it looked very much mirrored, right? But the middle pod is quite different. It's smoother on the bottom, but it does have the window detail as well, so it would be easy to kind of mistake it for the top. Because it's even got the red ring glows on the nacelles like I was talking about.
Now,
I don't know if it's better or not, honestly.
Is it? It might just be because all the pointiness comes across here. Is it fair to say this view, assuming it goes the way it's intended, feels really aggressive? So I think this render tells me aggression, tells me stab you, shoot you. So I commend them for that, because the first view didn't feel that. This one, I get some warship vibes.
Yeah, there are spikes like everywhere on the back here. There's 2 long spikes on the front as well, which again is an aggressive look and an aggressive stance. But yeah, this almost feels better going this way, like this is the front, and have the nacelles trailing back. But
This would definitely be a very good of the week Voyager ship, like something totally different. But like they aren't friends. No, I get that from the art design. Next view though is kind of what I was just saying. This does feel more aggressive. You know, the first shot I always tend to do is more a flat render to appreciate the design. This obviously hides all the design, but this does feel aggressive, sleeker aggressive, but aggressive.
maybe the Chargh or whatever it's called is the Klingon word for vampire, because those look like 2 big vampire fangs. And we know they have the cleave ship that just cuts through other ships. Maybe this thing's designed to just puncture into ships.
I mean, it's not a bad idea, especially since how many decks would that go through at the scale? 5, 10, 15? I mean, can you hull breach 20 decks worth of piercing? I mean, it's, you know.
I mean, they could be weapons emitters of some kind. They don't invoke that, like if there was a glowing tip or something, you know, but...
Because what would they be? Because at the scale we think it is, they're giant. They go down to a point, which is unusual in that means whatever tech they're using, either it's not being presented forward or it's being used before the point. That said, on the left-hand side one, there is detailing actually. It's not just a point. There's actually more greeblies on the inside of the point, which implies the point might just be a hull point, like a hull structure, and the inner bit be the detailing, which I didn't actually notice first time. The deflectors, perhaps? Forward-facing deflector prongs that...
Well, anything that goes to a point, like it could be focusing energy. So it could be like taking this plasma and like focusing it to like a, you know, razor fine point to just maximize damage if it is a weapon of some sort. But yeah, like it could be shield emitters for a stronger forward-facing shield because that's
Oh, that's
what you're
interesting.
doing when you go into battle.
Very
But
Klingon, yeah.
yeah, they don't say shield emitters to me. I'm just kind of
Although what
thinking
does?
what they could be. Well, that's true. That's true.
Now, the big question in this view is what on earth and why on earth?
Or Kronos. Why on Kronos?
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, why on Kronos? The inner side of each of these pods is just a giant line of grills and then flat plates. It's such a distinct choice to make it the most plain, basic detail. What could that be? Right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that I thought when I saw the first image was I saw those, obviously. I could just see them like glowing up and like creating this energy in between those prongs.
Ooh.
It could be like a massive kind of like
interesting.
shield disruptor or something. The other thing, obviously, if they're nacelles, it could just be for venting, for cooling of this ancient technology. Because it, we talked earlier about the bigger the nacelle, maybe older it is. Just it's like more like a factory type vibe in there. So to dissipate heat, radiation, I
like that, but you wouldn't think having a vent going in where that means all the plasma air in the middle is all supercharged. You think out.
And as you're flying through it with the main body, which is at the back of the ship. Like,
yeah, I think that probably removes that from the option. I like the glowing idea, especially if you go with me that the lines of the actual glow bits, if that's the initial emitter, and then that glow continues, would be a fun visual. Now I'm wondering if the scale is giant as we think it is. Let's say big. Are those slits big enough to fly shuttles through? Just shuttles, not small shuttles. Because if that's entire bits a hangar, this is a warship, or even landing craft, say, thing warps in, like a lot of stuff swarm, each bay, each slit is one small bay, each one is a pretty small fighter, right? Like 2 or 3 people aboard, and then it can swarm landing craft. It's a big ship, conceptually. Would that work?
That'd be interesting. I don't know if they're big enough necessarily, and they don't really have any details that I think would imply that. If that's true, that's kind of cool. It's kind of like the Viper launch days from the Galactica.
Because then it would make interesting sense. You got all this bulk protects the fighters. The ship doesn't need many details. It just warps in. It's meant to be armored. It's a carrier, and it's an unusual way of doing it, right? Especially since each of those could, in theory, and again, obviously this is not what it is, but assuming it is, they could all close each blade, so it would actually create a structure point as well.
I like the carrier idea. It would explain those large pods on the side. Half of them are just like, fighter storage or something.
Halves
like
warp,
that.
Halves whatever. It's unusual. And if they are just, because I'm thinking specifically of Armada 2, there's a landing craft pods, which are very small, that go through shields. They're tiny. So I'd imagine if they send out 50 tiny things, Orthographic, Stuart. Is the ship fixed in orthographic? Top and bottom view.
Well, here you can say why we thought they might be mirrored, but there are subtle differences, and the middle pod is quite a bit, not even, just it's different. It's smoother, less rows of windows, and there's 2 glowing blue elements on the top that aren't on the bottom.
It's an amusing shot to try and do comparative, because it's the same thing.
And I actually see a bit of a tie-in with one of the other ships, the very ornate one that looks like a key, like a fantasy key. There's those little hooks at the back of the nacelles. They have an ornate kind of look, and same with the points on the front. I think the other key one has like a black section on the front. That's
the black and red dynamic ship.
Yeah.
What intrigues me about this, and we talked in the Bird of Prey, how it may have been another shape the artist had in mind, who then moved it into a Klingon thing. If you were to remove the middle section and only use one of the pods, is that not a great sci-fi skyscraper? No,
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have to change it almost at all. Even the orange thing could be a thing, right? You shove it in the background and you've got a skyscraper. If you're going to stretch the truth, what if it's a Klingon building? The thing's designed to land and it's something kind of strange like that.
That's interesting. I've never really considered that, but yeah.
And then perhaps and then we're really like, give it so much benefit of the doubt, right? We're going so far beyond the resume. But imagine if the bottom really ornate impulse detail, imagine if they move and they go into a landing zone and then slide into place to lock it in. So you've actually got structurally that would make some sense. And then maybe even the orange dome is like in this imagined pod that it's landing into, you have like two pipes that attach that like feeds it with power. Like you plug fuel into an Apollo capsule, whatever, or whatever. It's so distinct an orthographic view of like how building it is.
The spire on top doesn't help, or does help in that regard. I mean, also, you just take out that middle part, extend the strut, you got a really cool sci-fi gun. Just make it a handle on that.
Yeah.
And,
the Romulan in Picard. Yeah, that was very similar. Let's see if the side, front and back change our vibe. Also not super forgiving, but a bit more different.
the side's interesting. The front is very aggressive looking. It looks like a mean face in the middle. And the back, I mean, the back looks quite impressive as well. The side, though, is just kind of It's invoking something in me.
But it is very NX era. They're very flat ships, right?
Yeah.
If you've seen The Flash, the middle bit of the front kind of looks like, kind of reminds me of Savitar's helmet. Kind of that vibe. But they're not bad views. They're both dull and interesting at the same time. They could be so much more, but also their lack of detail kind of stands out. Now, based on how dull the side is, would this benefit from having same design, but the pylon shifting down to allow the head to be higher and give it more of a three-dimensional vibe? It would change it a lot. Would that be yes in this?
Might be. The pods might be too big to have that really look good. I mean, looking at these views, it feels like it's a very heavily armored ship, especially from the side, right? Which would protect that middle pod somewhat, I guess. But
yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting too.
Like, you could definitely alter it, but you'd have to reduce the size of those pods, I think. But that'd be an interesting look.
Yeah, it would look too much like a guy with big shoes, like a clown with giant. Like there's this is oddly balanced, if dull. That would disbalance it, but it'd have more of certainly a through line, a curve. And also the front view is kind of Cylon as well. Just that little bit of Cylon.
Yeah.
But let's look at some detail shots. The model is only as good as it is, but this is what we have to work with. So a detail view. Did not realize there was red details in the inner pylon bits, both blue and red.
It's a detail you wouldn't necessarily see. You'd see like a hint of color there. But I mean, actually looking at it and zooming in, there's like a nice little red, like, semicircle detail, which is quite detailed. It's an interesting look. It feels like it's an incomplete piece, though. It just feels kind of tacked on. It doesn't feel like it's actually incorporated into the fin. It's weird. It just feels
extra,
just like set dressing.
But I gotta say, I'm actually genuinely kind of impressed by the bridge module, which I haven't actually looked at yet. There's loads going on here, and genuinely, this feels like a Klingon's head with the ribs. Like that's actually, that's pretty solid. It's got a full torpedo launcher right there. It's got a little pointy. This is actually a really quite interesting head bit. Yeah, I'm actually sold on this.
Yeah, it definitely does have Klingon type details on the top for sure.
Yeah, give this a neck and a ball or a point to give a more classic front segment, and this would be a very interesting back piece, yeah. And in fact, you could shove on those two D7 aft blocks, I think, to this design would be quite interesting. I think you could do that here.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
I think that would integrate reasonably well.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
I wish they would have done something like that, honestly, because that would have kind of pulled everything together cohesively, but...
Yeah, a lot of easy wins they just didn't do. But I like the design more now, seeing how much detail there is in the middle bit.
Yeah, it does look almost, too, above the torpedo launcher, almost looks like a set of doors that could possibly open. Maybe that's a shuttle bay or a docking area or something. Cargo. But, yeah, the windows, I mean, scale-wise, this seems pretty big. So...
a lot of space to do a lot of things. Next view, though, is a more dramatic side, and obviously sort of highlighting the vibe. We're going for more dramatic lighting here. I mean, that's not bad. I think you need to see the back details to kind of make it feel more three-dimensional, because it gives it more visual noise, but in a good way. I think that makes it feel more complete. The views where it loses that, all you see is these big bulbous engine modules. I think kind of that balance works better in this sort of view. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more going on the back for sure, but this is an interesting view. Like, I could see this in motion. It was actually the ship would be really good in motion. I'm sure. I've never used it in STO or
Into your
anything.
side
So
view, of course.
yeah,
But
that's why we do
so
shots like this.
shots like this. Yeah, because I was trying to find nice views. This I think is actually not a bad view. And like I said, you make green. You got a proper head module. You could convert this far easier in the Bird of Prey to be a Klingon design. Bit weird one, but next view is kind of the opposite. This is very plain. Aggressive, yes? I don't know, what do you think? Because there's more grill details than I realised. There's sticking out ones.
Yeah, this is aggressive for sure. And like I said, I still see a face on that middle module.
Well, now we've seen there's head detail of the Klingon forehead. That makes sense. I do see a Klingon-ish-esque.
It is cool, but it feels like something out of Star Wars. With this view, kind of gives a grandiose sense of scale to it, like something Star Destroyer size. That just
Yeah, well, I think I've really captured some weight from it. I think winter scale helps. Your brain notices and thinks, oh, it's big. Yeah, it's cool. But let's do possibly the unfair, but really the fair comparison. Now we know it is a warship of kind. Here is it compared to the last gen and the next gen warships, D5, D7, and the one in an older scale, of course. But here we go. What can we see? Is there any legacy continuation? Vibes, Stuart, vibes. What do you think?
it's like Discovery said, design lineage. Let's sidestep that and do something completely different. Yeah, it doesn't tie in visually with pretty much anything as far as, but I mean, that was the directive at the beginning of Discovery, right? So do something new. I still like the idea of this fleet being older ships, like an ancient fleet, or even Herc ships or something. That we speculated on that quite a bit. I like that idea, but it doesn't fit in with this lineage. If we're being 100% honest.
Well, and as was pointed out by someone in our Discovery Klingon Bird of Prey video, we say ancient, but according to an episode of TNG, Klingons discovered warp drive in the 18th century. So they've only, because that's when they were conquered by the Herc, who brought warp tech. So they've only had warp drive for 200 years longer than us, or 300. So ancient would just be 500 years. There is no 2,000-year-old warp ships. So,
but we don't know how old the Herc have had.
Sure.
So,
but then to think, why would you be using 300-year-old Herc ships designs, right? That's a bit of a stretch in any, especially as in that battle in Discovery, those are one of every house. These are not going to be shitty old ships. They're going to be the ships they want to send, right? But I didn't realize they were that. I didn't realize Klingons were that not far behind us. I thought they were more 1000 BC, but I guess whichever. Looking at this, I mean, this is what we've said before for major Discovery ships. It'd be nice to see attempted to be modified to be more canon, because I look at this and take the 7 out. Fine, that's too new. I get it. Simple details. You make it green would help. Instantly would help a lot. You give a bird paneling on the, so that's a bit of context on the two sides would help. Just subtle, but there. You make the impulse engines orange, like the D5, helps. You add red slits and a raised bit rather than that oval circle. A raised grilling, either pod, would help. Those 4 things would pull it in. So I see the logical. It wouldn't feel great, but they would be a lot more connected.
And even changing the middle module to feel more Klingon-esque, like even put it on a bit of a boom that sticks out a little further into the center of that would be kind of cool.
I mean, we saw in Lower Decks recently, there's a new warship Bird of Prey, which is just a D5 head. So shove on a D5 head, you've got a better ship, right? But the side view as well. Although, boy, it does certainly tell you when you struck gold with the D7 side profile how interesting and dynamic, and then the D5 is busy but interesting and faithful, and I see the logic. And then you got the brick, curved brick, but brick.
Yeah, kind of feels like the Typhoon class from the Federation a little bit from the side. Just feels like a yeah, it's got that vibe.
It feels un-art designed. Now, of course, you aren't looking at ships from the side view directly without perspective. You can't physically do that, right, in real life. So therefore, I mean, okay, it's a zoom lens, but like normally. So we're looking at it unfairly, but this is why it's interesting, right? Because like certain ships just look good from every view. It's rare, but it does happen. And both D5 and D7 look good from the side. Their sins are not being, but yeah.
I like your idea too of just changing the impulse color to the orange. It's just that feels more Klingon almost, even though red is associated with Klingons a lot. Something about that red orangey color.
But then you iterate this, especially if you're arguing it's old, then use the older engine color. Easy, done, boom, done. And then ending on the first view, as we always do. So how do you feel then? We've never looked at the ship in detail. This was our world first for us. How do you feel? And how does it stay in your ranking of the Discovery Klingon ships, would you say?
I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, at first glance, I would very easily overlook this. It was just being too simple. But yeah, diving into the details, there's some interesting stuff going on. It's not as elaborate as some of the other Klingon ships from Discovery, like the Bird of Prey or that key-shaped one. I can never remember the name of the thing. But to be fair, that's one of my favorite Discovery, the Eagle Moss models, because it's so elaborate and cool looking. It just doesn't say Klingon, as does this not really say Klingon to me at first glance. So it feels better for me now that I've kind of looked at it in detail. So yeah, it's not as simplistic as I thought it was at first glance. How about you? Has it changed anything for you? I mean, you had to put these shots together, so.
I did. I always try and ignore them a little bit when I make them, just so I can see them with you. Yeah, it's fundamentally flawed, but it has potential. And it benefits from the lack of ornateness that some other ships have, where I genuinely see a semblance of structure to the greebling. Other ones, they're just, here is a panel line, here is a plate, and it's like, it just doesn't mean anything. Here's a little bit of something going on. It's actually simpler for it, but actually, yeah, so I appreciate it more now. It would look good in the fleet, I'll say that. And certainly, yeah, the idea of having these giant armored nacelles is Klingon. I could appreciate that as a concept. Just Klingoning it up. D7 linking, whatever, etc. There's stuff you could do with, I think.
Well, that's our thoughts. What are your thoughts? Comment down below what you thought about this, anything that we talked about, or anything that you picked up that you want to let us know. That's what the comment section's for. And be sure to make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say be sure to make sure? I did. Sorry.
Only if you're sure, Stuart.
Make sure you're... Anyway, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click that notification bell icon to all so you don't miss any content from us in the future. We do a lot of it.
And if you have played this ship in Stowe, let us know. I'm just interested to hear. And if you want to support us in what we do here on Trekyards every single week, looking at stuff even now that's new to us, then support us via Patreon if you can. Join the channel on YouTube if you can. Both are monthly, both help a lot. Or one-time donations via trekyards@hotmail.com. That is the PayPal. Or super chat on any live, super thanks on any video, or buy a shirt. I'll link down below.
That's right. So until next time, he is Commander Coggins.
He is Captain Foley.
No out jokes today. See you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.